Hello everyone, James Donaldson here, and I'm bringing you a video on purchasing a gun. Let's check it out. Hello everyone, James Donaldson here, and today we're going to be talking about how to purchase a gun. It is kind of the next segment in my gun ownership video series. Granted, the last one focused on pistols. This really applies to any type of gun you want to buy, with the exception of machine guns and short barrel rifles or short barrel shotguns, other NFA items of that nature, but we won't get into that. So, assisting me with purchasing presentations as usual is our friend Chick. So, I'm also going to simplify this because my other video, The Truth About the Gun Show and Internet Loopholes, covers buying things online. It also talks private sale, so those things I'm going to leave out. So to simplify it, Chick goes into Seal's store, as we've talked about from our suppressor purchasing video, and Seal sells guns and suppressors. So Chick sees this absolutely magnificent Glock 17L, wants to purchase it. Well, that's easy. Chick tells Seal, and Seal gets together what we call a Form 4473 from the ATF. Here is what it looks like. And then this is kind of, this section right here is kind of what you'll be bothered with when you, or the rest of what you'll be bothered with when you go to fill one out. So, as I've mentioned in another video that I've already mentioned, it is highly illegal to lie on this form. So, with questions like, are you a fugitive from justice, or are you an unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulus, blah 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 blah, you need to answer truthfully. Now, once the form is filled out, signed, all that, Chick hands the form over to none other than Seal, or anyone else that works at the store and is licensed or operating under the license. So then Seal goes ahead with that information and calls the FBI hotline for the background check. So then in there, the background check is completed. And as long as everything is in order for Chick, then this gets filed away by Seal. So, for instance, in Kansas, that's simply a record of transaction. As I talked about before, if the gun is used in a crime, that can be used to trace the gun sale, but there's no actual registration in states like Kansas. So, just because Chick bought this gun from Seal doesn't mean the government knows about it. In fact, I guarantee you if Chick buys it from Seal in Kansas, the government doesn't know about it. Now, having bought the gun and done the form, paid Seal, Chick now leaves with the gun. That's it. It's kind of the end of the video. I guess I will throw in, for caveats and variables, that there are states that infringe on a person's right to keep and bear arms, with things like waiting periods. Now, always check your local and state laws, because, for instance, there's plenty of laws in other states that I'm unaware of, but one example being the waiting period. Kansas doesn't have that. So, I will say about the waiting period that what a lot of people don't consider, which is true of a lot of gun laws, is people don't think how they affect the average day-to-day person. So, we're going to go ahead and have an example. So, many people think by having a waiting period that if Frog gets in an argument at a bar and knows the person that they got in an argument with and then wants to do them harm, that the next day Frog will go and buy a gun and hurt that person. So the waiting period offsets that. Well, I will say that highly unlikely. If Frog really premeditates that, Frog will likely carry it out. And if Frog's not going to do it, Frog's going to come to that conclusion on Frog's own. And while I'm not saying a waiting period has never ever worked, that the sheer mathematics of that are highly improbable that it's never worked, I will say that a bigger problem that the waiting period causes, or a problem in general, is let's say that Chameleon here has had his life threatened. So, Chameleon thinks, well, as good as law enforcement officers are at responding, they could respond within 10 minutes, and that could not be enough time. There could be a cop car around the corner, and that could also not be enough time. You call the cops when you know there's a problem. If you already own a gun to address the problem, then that helps out and kind of, fills the gap between the phone call and the police arriving. So, Chameleon receives a death threat from somebody, and while Chameleon does take some legal proceedings, that person is still able to walk around and do whatever. So, Chameleon in Kansas decides to get some protection. Now, Chameleon has some home defense or concealed carry, depending on other avenues. Either way, Chameleon was able to buy a gun and immediately be able to have it for self-defense. Now, let's use this other scenario where somebody might not be able to buy a gun and have it right away because they have to go through the waiting period. This puts their life at jeopardy, or in jeopardy, because now they have to wait to be able to protect themselves. Can't really lay it out any clearer than that, I don't think. And I guarantee that scenario, where someone's wanting a gun to protect themselves, happens a lot more often than someone being hot, going and buying their first and only gun, and then going and committing a crime. So, quite the caveat and variable. Anyway, to close, that's all I've got. I hope you learned about the process of buying guns, the simplicity, and how it's not really daunting, and also there is a background check involved. So, if you found the video helpful, if you enjoyed the video, like by hitting the thumbs up below. Feel free to subscribe, that helps me out a lot. And of course, also following us on Patreon and becoming a member, that's great too. And as always, feel free to leave any comments, questions, or anything like that down below. Thank you, and until next time, keep your composure.